Fat positivity activists are now teaming up with corporate America, Biden is trolling Republicans in bad faith, and a woke TikToker is saying that grammar is racist. We're going to talk about all that and much more in today's episode of Brad vs. Everyone, my new daily series where we break down the craziest stories in our politics and on the internet from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, yada yada yada. And now, let's check in on our friends over in the fat positivity movement, because they've apparently found new allies in corporate America? The Washington Post just broke a big investigative story headlined, "As obesity rises, big food and dietitians are pushing, quote, anti-diet advice. General Mills is warning of food shaming, and dietitian influencers are promoting junk foods and discouraging weight loss efforts." Yeah, we're off to an interesting start. The story opens with an anecdote about an individual that I found really interesting. Jay Rochon struggled to lose weight for years, but she felt as if a burden had been lifted, I hope that pun was intentional, when she discovered YouTube influencers advocating, quote, health at every size, urging her to stop dieting and start listening to her, quote, mental hunger. She stopped avoiding favorite foods such as cupcakes and Nutella. They made me feel like I was safe eating whatever the hell I wanted, said Rochon, 51, a video editor in Wisconsin. In 2 months, she regained 50 pounds. As her weight neared 300 pounds, she began to worry about her health. So she followed the advice of these anti-diet, body positivity nutritionists and quickly regained 50 pounds. Maybe this movement isn't good. And I did a little bit of a double take when I read the sentence about how she started to worry about her health as she reached 300 pounds. You would hope one would start worrying earlier than that. Seriously though, I'm not mocking this person or trying to be mean to them. I actually feel bad for them. They've been hopelessly misled by this new age of woke anti-diet influencers that, as it turns out, some of them are being paid by the corporations that profit off the obesity epidemic to push this anti-diet nonsense and even lie to their audience about what's healthy and what's not, and promote unhealthy products in the name of health and wellness. Back to the Washington Post for more details. The videos that Rochon encountered are part of the anti-diet movement, a social media juggernaut that began as an effort to combat weight stigma and an unhealthy obsession with thinness. But now, global food marketers are seeking to cash in on the trend. One company in particular, General Mills, the maker of Cocoa Puffs and Lucky Charms cereals, has launched a multi-pronged campaign that capitalizes on the teachings of the anti-diet movement. An investigation by the Washington Post and the Examination has found. General Mills has toured the country, touting anti-diet research it claims proves the harms of food shaming. It has showered giveaways on registered dietitians who promote its cereals online with the hashtag #DerailTheShame, and sponsored influencers who promote its sugary snacks. The company has also enlisted a team of lobbyists and pushed back against federal policies that would add health information to food labels. Personally, if I were a part of the anti-diet or body positivity movement and considered myself some sort of hyper-woke leftist, like most of them do, but then suddenly big corporations and corporate America were on my side, cheering me on and even paying me, that would prompt some introspection, some reflection on my position and whether I'm really actually doing something in line with my values. But apparently, many of these individuals failed to see the cognitive dissonance that was going on, or they were simply too addicted to the fame, money, and the brand they built up with this false messaging, and they knew if they looked inward and they started to reflect seriously on some of this, it might all come unraveled as they realize that what they've been pushing is largely nonsense. To be clear though, I'm not pro-diet. I'm pro-health and I'm pro-moderation. A lot of fad diets are in fact harmful, but the anti-diet movement, the healthy at every size movement, the body positivity movement, all these online activist movements, they've moved far beyond the initial causes that I largely agree with, like criticizing fad diets and arguing it's fine that not every woman is a size 0. And they've now moved on to promoting and glorifying obesity and pushing outright health misinformation wrapped in woke bubble wrap most of the time, even as obesity-related illnesses becomes one of the top causes of preventable death in the United States. More details from the Washington Post investigation show just how expansive this influencer operation is. Online dietitians, many of them backed by food makers, are building lucrative followings by co-opting anti-diet messages. Anti-diet hashtags such as hashtag no bad foods, hashtag food freedom, and hashtag ditch the diet have proliferated on social media. The Post and the examination analyzed more than 6,000 social media posts by 68 registered dietitians with at least 10,000 followers. The analysis showed that roughly 40% of these influencers, with a combined reach of more than 9 million followers, repeatedly used anti-diet language. Most of the influencers who used anti-diet language were also paid to promote products from food, beverage, and supplement companies, the analysis found. At least 10 registered dietitians promoted General Mills cereal in TikTok and Instagram posts last year, using the slogan hashtag derail the shame while tagging the company in their posts. In some posts, dietitians showed off personalized Cheerio boxes adorned with their names while they denounced food shaming of ready-to-eat cereals. I'm going to show you guys an example of one of these videos from a so-called dietitian.
Every time I pour a bowl of cereal, I'm reminded about the favorites I grew up on, which is why I'm partnering with General Mills. Honey Nut Cheerios were always my top pick, and that holds true today. As a registered dietitian, I will always advocate for fearlessly nourishing meals, including cereal, because everyone deserves to enjoy food without judgment, especially kids. My parents trusted the great taste and good nutrition of Big G cereals, and so do I. You'll find twice as much vitamin D as before, totaling 20% of the daily value per serving, and that is a great reason to keep enjoying those nostalgic favorites from the past.
When I found this and I watched this, it blew my mind. This dietitian took money from corporate America, General Mills, to lie to her audience and describe Cocoa Puffs and Cinnamon Toast Crunch as nourishing and nutritious foods. It's health misinformation. She's either knowingly, and it has to be knowingly, if she's a dietitian, lying to her audience because somebody paid her. This stuff is raw carbs and raw sugar. There is just literally no universe in which processed added sugar in huge amounts constitutes a nutritious meal for anyone, let alone children. This really bothers me as an influencer myself as well, because once you even have a medium-sized following, brands and stuff will start to reach out to you and just offer you money to promote their stuff. Oftentimes, the ones who are offering the most money are the ones whose products are the most sus or the most potentially harmful, and that's why they're offering more money, because not a lot of people want to work with them. And I personally would never promote something to my audience that would potentially be harmful. So for example, sports betting has like ruined lives. I don't want to promote that. And there's a lot of supplements they want you to hawk. And I don't know, I would generally not feel very comfortable with that if the claims about it were unverified and unproven. And I wouldn't want to lie to my audience. I've built up trust with you guys and I want to honor that. And well, obviously, like anybody, I would do ads or sponsorships. I'm not going to knowingly lie to my audience for money. Apparently, a lot of these progressive-minded individuals in the fat positivity anti-diet movement have absolutely no issue doing that. We're doing just that. I don't know. Let me know what you think, but I find that absolutely disgraceful. The reason it's so disgraceful is because they're spreading this misinformation and they're participating in what is essentially a death cult at this point. Back to the Washington Post here. Since the 1980s, the U.S. obesity rate has more than doubled, according to federal data. Nearly 500,000 Americans die early each year as a result of excess body weight, according to estimates in a 2022 Lancet study. So the people spreading misinformation with their corporate buddies are actively worsening a crisis that's leading millions of Americans to premature deaths. I honestly don't know how these people sleep at night, let alone consider themselves woke or progressive. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video if you're finding this interesting in some way. And now let's talk about the Biden administration, because the White House is using its official Twitter account to troll Republicans in extraordinarily bad faith. President Biden just recently unveiled his latest attempt to cancel student debt, aka make taxpayers absorb the loss for some billions upon billions of dollars in student loans that are currently owed to the federal government. Partisan politics being what it is, most Republicans strongly disagree with this and are pushing back on it. And our president, who, if you remember, was going to be the one to restore civility and put the adults back in charge, is responding not with substantive disagreement, but with disingenuous partisan cheap shots. From official White House social media channels with millions of followers, Team Biden is trolling Republicans who are opposing the president's latest bailout by pointing out their supposed hypocrisy because their businesses had Paycheck Protection Program loans forgiven during the pandemic. Now, this might understandably sound like a legitimate gotcha to an average person at first glance. But for those of us who are actually pretty familiar with the details of both policies, as the White House surely is, we know that it's a completely unfair comparison, total apples to oranges nonsense. To start, one of the Republicans' main criticisms of Biden's student debt efforts is that he's trying to do it unilaterally with the stroke of a pen via executive action rather than go through Congress, which is what you're supposed to do because under our Constitution, Congress has the power to spend taxpayer money. They have the power of the purse. But Congress has repeatedly rejected Biden's student loan proposals, so he's trying to do it by executive action instead, which is unconstitutional and something that constitutional conservatives would naturally oppose. However, the COVID-era stimulus program the president keeps invoking in his gotchas, PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, was properly considered and passed by Congress. That's money that's legitimately authorized to be spent and given out under our system. So on those grounds alone, it would be entirely legitimate to oppose student debt relief, but be okay with PPP. The differences between the two programs certainly don't stop there, because from the very beginning, the Paycheck Protection Program loans were formally structured as loans, but they were really meant to be forgiven. They weren't really meant to be paid back. The only reason they were formally called loans instead of grants, which is what they were, is so that if businesses use the money improperly, money was supposed to be spent on payroll and preserving jobs, not on other stuff. And the government could demand the loan be repaid. But as long as it was used properly, the loans were always intended to be forgiven. They weren't really meant to be paid back. Student loans, on the other hand, when we gave out that money, that taxpayer money, it was always expected to be paid back. The programs are also really different in their context. Student loans are given out as an added benefit to help students finance an investment that will add over $1 million on average to their lifetime earnings. They don't have to go to college or have to take out big loans. It's a voluntary, optional thing. Meanwhile, the PPP money was given out as compensation after the government caused businesses enormous financial harm by closing the economy during the pandemic. It couldn't opt in or opt out of lockdowns. For all these reasons, these programs are just apples and oranges. It's understandable that everyday Americans might not know all the differences between the two, but the White House certainly does, and for them to weaponize Americans' ignorance for a partisan hit job is honestly disgraceful. What do you guys think? Do you see a difference between PPP and student loans, or do you somehow think they're similar? Let me know in the comments below. I do want to hear from you. And don't forget to like and comment and yada, yada, yada. Now, we're going to move on to Brad versus TikTok, the segment where I lose brain cells for your enjoyment. Today, we've got a woke TikToker telling us with a straight face that grammar, proper grammar, and expecting people to use it is racist.
Okay, speaking as an educator, as well as just a human being, we need to remember that things like this is white supremacy. The idea that grammar, that proper syntax, that whatever it is that you think needs to be corrected in a moment of someone expressing or saying something is racist. Say this to educators because that tweet was from educators attacking another educator who is a woman of color and also our union president, the second largest teachers union in the United States. And she is the first woman of color to be our president. And if you know LA, that's a big deal. So the fact that we have educators who are saying with their full chest that what she said was incorrect and trying to police her language because of grammar, because they were upset they did not get their way, even though a majority vote went through the House, really speaks to who these educators are. And this is a call-in, and I want to be honest about that. It truly is a call-in, because I'm not naming names, I'm just saying you as a group need to work on do better. Because if that's what you're saying out front, publicly, saying that all right there, like, honey, what is going on? Because if that's what you're saying, what is happening behind your closed door in your classroom then? Like, really think, is that how you would talk to a student in your classroom? And if it isn't, why do you think it's okay to talk to an adult that way? Like, let's all sit with that and stop throwing a fit on Twitter by attacking other people. You can be upset, you can post your upsetness, you can post how unfair it feels to you. That is fine, but you should never use that harm, that trauma, that hurt to go and attack another human being, especially a human being that is leading us, especially when they are a woman of color. Do better.
Let's sit with that. Do better. Y'all, I'm telling you right now, if I walked in, met this person, and they were my kid's teacher, my kid's changing classes. If I heard 5 minutes of them talking like this, my kid's changing classes or my kid's going to a different school. The hilarious, but actually kind of sick and twisted part of the argument made in this video is that by saying you think it's racist to expect people to use proper grammar and syntax, you're actually suggesting that Black people or minorities are less capable of speaking in correct English and using proper grammar, which is not true and is actually racist. Also, for you to be going on and on about how this person who's being criticized for using improper grammar is a woman of color and therefore shouldn't be criticized for being corrected for grammar is also racist. You're saying that people should have different expectations, lower expectations for a woman of color who is in a leadership position. When if you actually are opposed to racism, what you would say is, well, anybody who's in this important leadership position, we should have the same standards for them, regardless of their race. But this woke mindset literally has you having different standards for different races and thinking that you're the one who's against racism. Babe, the math isn't mathing. It's funny because my mom often corrects me if I say something incorrect in my videos or even talking to her on the phone. If I mispronounce a word or if I say something with incorrect grammar, she'll correct me. And it's kind of annoying, but I'm actually glad she does it. By this person's logic, is my mom racist against me or something? I'm glad she does it though, because the first couple times she started doing it when I was, in college still, I think, I asked her, like, come on, like, why are you doing that? And she explained, because your goal is to be on TV, to be a journalist, to be a presenter, to be on social media. And I want you to say it correctly when you're in public so you don't look silly or sound dumb. And I was like, damn, that's actually a good point. Please do keep correcting me. Thank you. That's helpful. In the same way, you'd think somebody in a public leadership position would kind of want to know if they said something incorrect so they could correct it and not look dumb next time. But no, apparently, we can't expect people to use proper English and grammar because even that is considered racist now. Again, we have this boy who cried wolf problem, though. Like, the thing is that actual genuine racism is so evil and so vile, and we have such a dark history of it in this country, and some of that still affects life today, that it's really wrong to water down and to neuter the term racism and racist and make it lose its significance by being overused in so many situations where it doesn't apply. That's exactly what people like this TikToker are doing. It's a real shame, and we need a complete and total shutdown of woke white savior TikTokers until we can figure out what the hell is going on. All right, everybody, let me know what you thought of that TikTok in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. And now, before we part ways for the weekend, I want to react to a couple of your comments from the last episode. About the story at UC Berkeley where the protester tried to hijack an event at someone's home, one person wrote, "People don't understand that your rights do not trump someone else's. Your right to free speech does not overpower someone else's private property rights. Everyone is equal under the law, and crying oppression when you're held to that standard is not a good look." Preach, my friend, preach. Referring to the TikTok I reacted to and the broader trend of Gen Z feeling depressed and lethargic, one person said, "I'm not depressed, I've just lost the will to live, and I spend all day laying on the couch thinking about how nothing brings me joy," in air quotes, kind of paraphrasing what the video was. And then this person wrote, "Sometimes it feels like I'm the only person left with critical thinking skills." Yes, my friend, that's how I feel every time we do one of these TikTok segments. Another person said, "Brad, you need to make a shirt of you saying, 'No, babe,' LOL." So I don't know about a shirt, but I have considered doing like mugs with some of my catchphrases like, "I deserve smarter haters," or "Your Delulu is showing." But merch is a lot of work, so I would need to hear from a lot of people that it's actually something they're interested in and they would buy it. So let me know in the comments if that's you and if you would buy something like that. And finally, one person commented, "I love this new show you're doing. I look forward to it. I'm also sad to hear it's difficult to find unbiased news." So I'm so glad you like the show and you're tuning in. I hope everybody starts to, just look forward to it dropping every evening, Monday through Friday, and that we can keep doing this together. I did want to note, though, that please don't come to me looking for unbiased news. I'm giving you fact-based news, but I'm giving it to you with my bias, with my opinion. The difference between me and traditional media these days is that I'm upfront with you. I'm honest about that. You're getting my opinion. I'm not neutral. I'm not unbiased, though I'm not partisan. I'm an independent thinker, but I am biased. I am giving you my opinion. So please know that and consider anything I say for what it's worth. It's always going to be based in fact, and if I get something wrong, I'll correct it, but I am giving you a perspective. I'm not pretending to be unbiased or a neutral journalist. All right, guys, with that, we'll leave it there. I hope you all are enjoying this. This was a really fun week of this new series. Please do like, comment, share the video with somebody who you think might enjoy this series and might appreciate it. And please do consider subscribing and sticking around and maybe even turning on those bell notifications. With that, enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you all again in the next video.